Hello YouTube. I wanted to talk to you guys about the Splatoon 3 Side Order DLC that came out, I think a week ago. My thoughts on the DLC as far as I've played, which is like this is footage. The footage you're seeing now was from like I think like a few days ago, and I've gotten way further into the DLC since then. But I would say like the DLC is really good. Like the gameplay is really nice. It's supposed to mimic like a roguelike, and I've never actually played a roguelike, so this is truthfully the first experience, and I do kind of like the fact that this game has so much replayability to it. So the main thing that I remember about this DLC was that it's all heavily based from the final fest from Splatoon 2, which was Order versus Chaos, right? Or Pearl versus Marina, quote unquote, right? Marina playing as Order, she won. So the DLC or the next game's story was going to be based around, Order, which I'm not gonna lie, I did not expect this deal to. I did not expect this to be as good as it ended up being. I don't know what it was. It's not like I had like doubts of a good DLC for this game, but like I just didn't really think it was gonna be this good. Like it's really good. So I guess like the main thing I could dive into is just since I already somewhat mentioned it, is the return of the off the hook duo, right, Pearl and Marina. So what you end up getting is a lot of just like I guess like weirdly nostalgic interactions because it's weird to think that like Splatoon 2 like as a game pretty much like as like a game the Final Fest was over 4 years ago, and that is insane to think about. Like the fact that I was like super actively playing this game just like 2.5 3 years ago is nuts to me. You get to see a lot of like new convo, a lot of talking points from Pearl and Marina. You get back their same personality traits, Marina being more like level-headed and calculated, while Pearl is just like very much goes with the vibe and just is just a lot more impatient. Which is it's weird because I vividly remember that in back in Splatoon 2, I don't know what it was. I didn't actually like Pearl that much. I don't know what it was, but I just didn't her personality just didn't click with me when I first played Splatoon 2. But like I guess now that I'm older and I guess I can kind of relate to not being as nerdy and calculated, I guess. It's like you get more moments where like I'll hear Pearl say something stupid and I'll just kind of like laugh at it. Like instead of like before I was just like, oh haha, Pearl's just goofy. But now it's like I actually like them. And on top of those two, you also get two more characters, right? You get another supporting character in the name of Act, right? And their whole thing, as far as I get from the DLC, is they're like a past ally of Marina's that kind of like stayed behind while Marina kind of like went to the surface. Like that's what I've gathered and what I can remember. Act is like cool. And by the way, Act is the like the green like octoling to the side of the elevator. Act is like they're cool, but like they didn't really do as much as the advertising for the DLC made it look like they were gonna do, which is I'm not gonna lie, I've definitely noticed that in a lot of like just I don't know what it is about a lot of like Nintendo DLCs, but like they will just announce DLCs for stuff, and half of it has nothing to do with what they talk about. Like the DLC is like it is not. Act played such like a small role besides maybe like the very end and the music. It could just be that I'm forgetting some major plot points, but like I'm sure the lore wise, they're important, but like in terms of like what I gathered from playing the DLC, they didn't really do that much. So that's my thoughts on them. They're just cool. So hopefully, like as I get further and further into the DLC, maybe they are of like more use. But we'll just have to wait and see. And the other new character that you're introduced to is the main antagonist, which is literally named Order. Well, originally he's named Order, then he becomes Overloader because that is like Order is like the antagonist. Overlorder is like the final boss, and then once you defeat them, they turn into Smollusk, which is just like this mini cephalopod that's just like a nuisance basically. And the whole goal of Order is that you just basically fight them over and over and over again, and the more that you fight them, the more that what's it called? The more that the game kind of like tells you about, why Order's intentions are the way that they are, like what Marina has to do with it, what they're doing that makes them keep having to repeat being this nuisance the entire game. So that's cool. I guess the last thing I can speak on, or the last thing, well, the second to last thing is just the gameplay. I already said that the gameplay has a lot of replayability because it's, a roguelike. So you get that nice nature of like, you can keep playing these over and over and over again. And it's weird because it's supposed to get easier and easier, but on top of that, as you progress and you keep doing these over and over again, you fight bosses and levels that get more and more difficult. Like for example, like one of the bosses, like the boss you're seeing here, it's weird because like I don't remember what changes, but one thing I know from this boss is that in this footage you'll see that I'm not really attacking the lit up rings on it as much. But like as you play this more and more, as you play this more and more and you read the notes, you start to learn like you don't actually have to break down every single layer. You can only defeat like the four lit up layers and you're done. And you can do that within like I think when I actually did it in like a later run, I think I ended up taking that time of like what was it like 2.5 minutes, and it ended up becoming like a minute 15 because it was just way faster. And also I had a different weapon. But yeah, you know, there's these things. There's the palettes, which the palettes are basically like the weapons that you customize using colored chips, which are the things you probably see on the side of the screen and the menu that I'm looking at right now. It's like and color chips are like very interesting because they basically just buff your weapon beyond belief, and it makes the final boss way cooler. Because what the final boss does in the final phase is they rid you of all of your chips, so all of your boosts. But the goal is that you go outside, like not go outside, you go around, and as you break down the boss in its final phase, they give you like every single chip, pretty much. Like they max out all of your chips. So by the time you're actually beating up the final boss, you are like this overpowered like Octoling, and Pearl, like the drone, is just broken. Like it's such a like it's so like what's it called? There's a word for it. There's a word for it. I can't think of off the top of my head, but like it's just really, really like powerful. I don't know how to put it. Like it feels so like crazy to just basically just melt a boss and realize, damn, if I play my cards right and I pick the right chips, I can just melt the final boss. Not to that extent of every single chip, but something close to that, which is sick. And then the final talking point I wanted to talk about is this DLC worth the $30? And I personally would say yes, it is. On top of everything I just described from the DLC, there's also like bonuses such as like, when you complete the DLC, you have access to walk around Inkopolis Square, and I forgot the name of the first region, but you get access to the Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2 like cities and shops and locations and stuff. So you basically get to relive your experience playing in either Splatoon 1 and or 2. So that in itself is pretty good. There's also, I think, a lot of like exclusive gear from the DLC that you get. There's obviously going to be like there's the weapon replicas that you can get, which you can get a replica of pretty much every category of weapon, which is sick. And then, you know, as I already mentioned with the DLC and the replayability, I can't I can't properly tell you guys how much time I've put into it just because I can't like properly like there's no like proper way to assess how much time you will get from the DLC. But I would say you're getting like if you want to like complete everything in the DLC, you're getting at least like another I'd say like 50 hours of game 50, 60 hours of gameplay. And that's if you want to go for like everything. And even if you don't want to go for like every single thing, your first like successful run of a like palette could probably your first run is probably going to take you somewhere around like 40 something minutes worth of gameplay. Then you take into account like cutscenes and gameplay. Like a successful run is probably going to take you like an hour each. So, you know, I'd say like you take that, multiply it by each weapon, not even including fails, and then like collecting all the chips, getting all the dialogue. There's just a lot that goes on. So I would personally say that the DLC is worth it. If you're a fan of Splatoon 3, you should definitely already have it. If you do not have Splatoon 3, I would also recommend the game just because I don't think I've ever mentioned it on this channel, but like, yeah, I do play Splatoon 3 a lot, and I just think it's a pretty good game. I'm just very competitive, and Splatoon 3 just has that really good like competitive itch It basically it scratches that that's not even how you word it. It scratches that competitive itch that I normally have when I play a lot of like multiplayer games. So I think the game is fun. I think the DLC is worth it. I don't really know how to close out this video once more, but I mean, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell. I want to try and be more consistent, not just over like my breaks, but actually during the school year for now. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.